It is on, ma'am.
Good evening to all of you. Today we have a very interesting topic based on myopia progression. And as we know we don't really know much about this program. It is a great pleasure to have with us Dr. Lakshmi, who is going to enlighten us on this program. And Dr. Lakshmi, of course, is a TACO member and a daughter of TACO member. So I'm very happy to see her here, because when I first came to Thrissur, I think she was the first student I saw in Thrissur Medical College. So very happy to know that you reached this level and become an expert in this. So welcome, Lakshmi, and welcome to all of you. And this is a sponsored program. So unfortunately, we were not starting with the 7:30 TACO program before this. But anyway, we'll do that next time. Just to remind you that this month, we are also having the TACO family meet on June 24th. So after this, we'll be seeing you there. So I would like to invite our chairpersons, Dr. Vijaya Kumari and Dr. C.V. Radha Devi. I'm sure you all know that Lakshmi is the daughter of Radha Madam. And so she's very proud to be here. And we are also very proud to have her here. Welcome, Madam. Please take over. And for introduction of the speaker, I would like to invite Dr. Samyukta.
Thank you, Madam. Good evening, one and all. As practicing ophthalmologists, we are all currently concerned about the COVID-19 pandemic taking its toll on everyday life. Sadly, the pediatric population has to bear the brunt of the pandemic in the form of a myopia boom, which is being insidiously observed with increased screen time now that the school lectures are being replaced by online learning programs. So we need to be really on track to mitigate this issue. Tonight, Team TACO is extremely pleased to have on board with us someone who can enrich us with an immense experience on this field. So please let me introduce Dr. Lakshmi C, Associate Professor, Pediatric Ophthalmologist, Strabismologist, and Phaco Surgeon from Malabar Medical College and Research Center, Kozhikode. Dr. Lakshmi has gracefully consented to give us a lecture on the topic, Interventions to Prevent Myopia Progression. It was a real pleasure to go by her CV. So many accolades and honors right from her school days. Dr. Lakshmi has got graduated from Government Medical College, Thrissur in the year 2003. She underwent her postgraduate training, MS in Ophthalmology, from 2004 to 2007 from the prestigious Aravind Eye Hospital and Postgraduate Training Institute, Madurai, from where she later on procured her long-term fellowship in pediatric ophthalmology and adult strabismus in the year 2013. Having bagged her FRCS degree in 2014, she has been successfully pursuing her career as a pediatric ophthalmologist, strabismologist, and phaco surgeon ever since. She has, to her credit, a good number of publications in local, national, and international index journals. She has conducted and presented numerous instruction courses in All India and Kerala State Ophthalmic conferences, apart from her presentations in international conferences. With her distinguished career and wide expertise in the management of pediatric refraction anomalies, pediatric cataract, simple and complex strabismus surgeries, Dr. Lakshmi is sure to give us a vivid picture in the management strategy to halt the progression of myopia. Over to you, Madam.
Thank you, Samyukta, for those kind words. I think it's a bit too much. So I think I'm audible to you, suppose. Okay.
Hello.
Yes, madam.
Your mother will be chairing it, right?
Yes.
Okay. The incidence of myopia, it's quite on the rise as for the past 2 years since the COVID-19 lockdown. What we are seeing in the OP nowadays, there is a striking increase in the incidence, I'm sure. And I'm sure that you'll be enlightening us on the treatment methods.
Sure, ma'am. Whatever I have seen, I'll share with you. Okay. So shall I start with the presentation? You are unmuted actually. Are my slides visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Yes. Okay. So good evening to one and all, and thank you very much for those kind words. I think that's a bit too much for me. And let me take this opportunity to thank the organizing committee of TACO and Sun Pharma to have me here to share a few thoughts on the intervention of myopia. To be frank, it's more of a returning to home ground than being a guest speaker in real terms. More than half of the audience here are my teachers, whom I know not only after starting MBBS, but even from my days when I was a small kid, when I used to visit Trichy Medical College Ophthalmology Department. And I really feel proud of being a Trichy Medical College alumnus. And it is an honor to speak before all my teachers who have been really successful in inspiring me and most of my friends. Many of my friends have taken up ophthalmology as a career. And I know that it is not very easy to inspire. Now that I'm into the teaching profession, I know that it's not very easy to inspire. I still remember the first classes on retinoscopy taken by Dr. Alex sir when I was an MBBS student, and I'm still in awe that he could put it to us in such a simple way that even an MBBS student could understand the basics of retinoscopy and refraction. Not only sir, but all my teachers were, I think, far beyond what we are now, because they were successful in instilling much more into our heads. So with that, I move on to my presentation, myopia progression and interventions to prevent myopia progression. So just to make this presentation a little bit interesting, and I think you will be a little more, because it's a dry topic, I think it will be a little bit more interesting with this. So I have a question for you, which will be told in the end. So throughout my presentation, I'll give you a few clues towards that answer. So the first clue is, I remember the colors when you were here. I remember seeing so far. I saw a future for us. Yet today I can only see the teardrops. Yet today I cannot see anything else. So this few words are regarding a condition. I think you can all guess the condition that I'm mentioning about. Yet today I can only see the teardrops. Yet today I cannot see anything else. So just keep that in mind when we progress. So why are we really worried about it? We'll just take it in 4 sections. Why are we worried about myopia and why should we treat it? The interventions that we have, do these work, and what is the next step forward? So why are we bothered about myopia? Why is it a global problem? It is expected that the world's population by 2050 is going to be 50% myopic, and of it, around 10% is going to be highly myopic. So these are the studies that have been there. And Indian models, as at the same way, show the same problem. Are my slides visible on the right-hand side? Because I can see only the Zoom picture there. Is it clear? The whole slide is seen? Yes, okay.
Yes.
So according to the studies from India, they also indicate an increase of around 10.53% of myopia prevalence in the next 3 decades. So this is a meta-analysis of published data from the last 2 decades. So we should be worried about myopia as a pandemic in this scenario. We are well aware that myopia is not only a genetically determined disease, but the environmental factors as well are responsible for the progression of myopia. And recent studies, not actually recent, this is a little bit old, but these studies show that there is a 0.27 diopters of spherical equivalent for each additional year in education. So we need to be concerned regarding that. Sight-threatening complications, as we all know, are more common with high myopia. The economic burden and quality of life are the other sides of the coin. And usually we see a myopia progression at around 6 years, more than 6 years of age. Around 6 to 12 is the normal age. And progression in Asian children is approximately 0.2 diopters more than what we see in European counterparts. That is what the studies show. The Indian studies show an increase in the urban prevalence of myopia in the last decade, as well as a prevalence in the rural myopic prevalence from 4.6 to 6.8%. So that is an issue even in Indian studies. Personally, I don't think that the incidence in Kerala or south of India has risen to such a status, but it is slightly on the higher rise. We need more uniform studies to prove that our incidence of myopia is increasing at par with this level. So if we prevent myopia today, we will not risk poor vision tomorrow. So that is the importance of having a myopia progression control from a small age. Let us look at what all interventions we have till now and what have been done. We can categorize these into mainly 3 varieties. One is an optical intervention. The second would be a pharmacological intervention. And the third would be environmental intervention. What all do we have in optical interventions? We have many optical interventions till date. I'll be talking about the recent optical interventions in the latter half of the presentation. So we'll just see what all we have till now. Most commonly, the spectacle options like undercorrections, customized spectacle lenses, and bifocals were used till now. But now we do not advise undercorrection. We would rather go for an optimal correction or a full correction rather than going for an undercorrection in cases of myopia. So this is the current trend. So spectacle options that were till now used were these. We also have the contact lens option like central distance soft multifocal lenses and the orthokeratology lenses. I'll be talking about it in a little bit of time. So a little, one single word about the glass prescription in children. Usually I go by the AAO guidelines for refractive corrections in infants and children. And this is just a guideline. We have to tailor make each and every prescription for the individual child, taking into consideration their family history, their fundus findings, their rate of progression. All these things have to be taken in account. But generally, we follow these guidelines. So what is the basis of optical correction in case of myopia progression? It all started from monkeys, like always. So certain studies brought forward that visual signals from the fovea are not essential for normal refractive development. Rather, the peripheral retina in isolation can regularize the emmetropizing responses and produce anomalous refractive errors in response to abnormal visual experience. So the gist that we get from all these studies is that the foveal perception is not as important as the peripheral retinal perception. So peripheral retinal perceptions can alter myopia progression. That is what we found out. So the optical corrections are mainly based on this theory. The basis of optical methods is we see that in an uncorrected myope, the central rays are focused in front of the retina. The peripheral rays are focused behind the retina. In a traditional correction, when we give a full myopic correction, what happens is the peripheral part has a hypermetropic blur, or it is focused behind the retina, and the central is clearly focused. So what would be suggested as an optimal correction would be a central clear focusing along with a myopic blur of the peripheral retinal rays. So peripheral retinal rays, if they are myopically blurred, it is supposed to be an optimal correction and retard of myopia progression. So this is the basic theory regarding optical correction. The exact mechanism of why these children progress with myopia is not known. There are many theories put forward, but these are some of the theories that are currently in practice. Progressive accommodative lenses are almost based on this theory along with the theory of the accommodative demand, because progressive accommodative lenses will reduce the accommodative demand, and in children who have a lag of accommodation, who do not accommodate adequately with the full corrective lenses, tend to progress with the myopia. So these children, when they are given progressive accommodative lenses, they tend to reduce the progression. So this was introduced by Leung and Brown, and randomized trials have been conducted. The problem is that they have statistically significant results, but they are not essentially clinically significant because they lack uniformity. There are different biases, and progressive accommodative lenses, even though statistically significant, they are not very much clinically significant. Orthokeratology lenses, well, these have actually come in the 1960s, but in between they were not used as in a wide practice. One is because it did not fit properly. They were using hard PMMA materials, and the lenses fitted very badly, so they were not used previously. And overall, they had, over and above that, they had a risk of corneal infections. And in 1980s, the reverse geometry lenses came, and that had a better centration. Nowadays, the modern orthokeratology lenses have 4 to 5 curves which have a better fit, along with a highly oxygen permeable lens material. And this produces a relative myopic peripheral defocus from the hypermetropic focus. So these tackle all these things along with the flattening of the cornea. So orthokeratology lenses are, again, they have come into vogue. Let's now take the second type of intervention, the pharmacological intervention. The drugs that are mainly used include atropine in varying concentrations from 0.01% to 1%, along with other drugs like tropicamide, cyclopentolate, pyranzepine, and 7-methylxanthine. The usage of atropine was initially introduced by Donders. Pollock was the first to use it. It is an anti-muscarinic drug, and the exact mechanism by which atropine reduces myopia progression is still not known. There are many theories that it regulates the scleral or retinal growth, but still we have to find the clear cause by which it retards myopia progression. The third type of intervention would be an environmental intervention, which is slowly coming in vogue. We have few studies which favor environmental interventions, in that it advises to increase the outdoor time and reduce the time for near work. The exact mechanism and how it is done is still not out, but we have certain studies which have evaluated, especially we have studies from China. We have meta-analysis and systematic reviews which give us data regarding the outdoor time, the time needed for near work, and the rate of myopia progression. So these are definitely some things which need to be pondered upon. My clue number 2. So this is a clue regarding the living being which has the condition that I mentioned in the first clue slide. The first clue slide was regarding the condition. The second clue is regarding a living being which has that condition. This is a clue to that. To you, rude would I never be, though I flag my tongue for all to see. To you, rude would I never be, though I flag my tongue for all to see. So I think by now you would have detected which living being I'm talking about and the condition. So we'll progress with the talk. The next part would be, do these interventions work? And if so, how can we adapt it to our practice? So I'm just grouping all these important studies. There are numerous studies to be included in this talk if I start talking about it. But we have just, I've just collected the important ones and grouped it so that we get a clear picture of what can be included in our daily practice. The first one would be the ATOM-1 study. It evaluated 1% atropine in a randomized double-masked study. It compared atropine and placebo-treated groups. The major outcomes was slowing of myopia progression, and the second outcome was axial length elongation. So these were the two outcomes. They studied myopia progression and axial length elongation in 2 groups. One was a placebo and the other was atropine 1%. The age group was around 6 to 12 years and the refractive error was between 1 and 6 diopters. So what were the results that we got from the ATOM-1 study, the atropine for myopia progression? It showed a progression of less than 0.5 diopters in 65% of atropine treated eyes. The eyes which are treated with atropine, they showed a progression of less than 0.5 diopters in 65%, whereas only a 13.9% showed a progression more than 1 diopters. So this was the data in atropine treated eyes. Now let's take the placebo treated eyes. 16.1% had a progression less than 0.5 diopters, and 63.9% had a progression of more than 1 diopters. So we can clearly see that the progression was lesser in the atropine treated group, 65.7. So before going to the ATOM-2 study, the problems with the ATOM-1 study was that they had atropine 1% as the drug of choice. So they had a lot of issues with pupillary dilatation, need for giving adhesion lenses, and intolerance to the drug. So they had a lot of dropouts because of those issues. So they moved forward with the atropine lower dose concentration trial. So that is the ATOM-2 study, or atropine for myopia progression 2 study. They compared the safety and efficacy of different concentrations of atropine. Likewise, the primary outcome was progression of myopia and the secondary outcome was change in axial length. And the other variables like pupil size, accommodation, near vision, everything were followed up in each visit. It consisted of 3 phases. The age group, everything was similar. Only thing was that they were designated into 3 groups. The phase 1 was the treatment phase, which lasted for around 2 years. The phase 2 was a washout phase of around 1 year, in which the atropine drugs were stopped. And the phase 3 was a retreatment phase with atropine 0.01%. So that was for 2 years. So overall, the study, the phase 1, 2, and 3 comprised of 5 years. And these were the breakups of each phase. So they studied 400 Asian children in the age group of 6 to 12 years with myopia of more than -2 diopters. And it was a randomized control trial, and they were assigned the percentages of atropine in a ratio of 1:2:2. It was age and gender stratified. The initial evaluation was done 2 weeks after the start of use of atropine. That was taken as the baseline. Every 4 months afterwards, they had a follow-up. And these Asian children were divided into 3 groups. They had atropine 0.01% in one group, 0.1% in the second group, and 0.5% in the third group. It was assigned in a 1:2:2 ratio. Each visit, they evaluated the cyclo-autorefraction, axial length, the mesopic photopic pupil, accommodation, and the logMAR visual acuity. So these were the factors that they evaluated. So now, what do we infer from this study? What did it show? Before that, we have to know a little bit about the phase 2 and 3 of these studies. Phase 2 was a washout period, as I told before. It was stopped for 1 year, and the children were followed up in 26, 32, 36 months. The same evaluations were repeated. And the phase 3 was a restart of the treatment in children who progressed above 0.5 in the phase 2. So phase 2 was without atropine. If they progressed beyond 0.5, they were restarted on atropine 0.01%, regardless of the initial grouping of the children. So this was the result that we got from the ATOM-2 studies. The mean myopia progression over the 5 years, as we can see in this, the myopia progression was least in the 0.01% group. The group in which they were assigned to 0.01% atropine in the first phase showed less of myopia progression compared to the other groups, the 0.1% and the 0.5%. And the second phase, when there was a washout, the group 2 and 3, that is 0.1% and 0.5%, showed more of rebound progression of myopia compared to the 0.01 group. The second thing that they studied was the mean myopia increase in phase 3 in all the 3 groups was similar to the myopia group progression of the 0.01% group in phase 1. So 0.01% group of phase 1, whatever myopia progression was seen, the same amount of increase in myopia progression was seen in the phase 3 of all groups. So this leads us to a conclusion that retreatment with 0.01% atropine is as effective as primary treatment with 0.01%. The third thing was more than 2 diopters of progression. That was seen only in 27% of 0.01% initial group compared to 40% in the second and third groups. So more than 2 diopter progression was also seen in a lesser amount of children. The next criteria that they assessed was the change in the axial length. There were no significant differences between all these 3 groups till the start of phase 3. But at the end of phase 3, they found that the mean overall change in phase 3 was smaller in the 0.01% group. So the advantages that we found were the mean spherical equivalent change was less in the 0.01 group. The rebound myopia progression was less in the 0.01 group. The axial length change was also smaller in the 0.01% group. Plus, retreatment was as effective as primary treatment in the 0.01% group. The other parallel studies that are being done is the LAMP study. They have just completed the phase 1. It's a randomized controlled trial. Compared to the 0.05, 0.025 and 0.01%, they intend to find out which is most effective. And over the 1 year period, they found out that 0.05% is still effective. And there is a dose-dependent response. Higher doses respond much more better. The progression with higher doses of atropine is slightly better compared to the lower dosages of atropine. All these doses reduced myopia to almost comparable levels, but 0.05 is found to be effective in the 1 year period. The rest of the phases are yet to come. The phase 1 is over. We have Indian data as well to support that, because in Indian data, we have seen that average spherical equivalent is comparable to the foreign data, which was done in SNEC, the ATOM-2 study. Axial length increase was also comparable. It also showed a reduction. So how do we come to a consensus on which type of treatment should we do and what will be effective and what should be practiced on our patients? So we'll go back to a Cochrane review, which was conducted in 2020. It is a network meta-analysis. And this gives us an idea of how these different types of treatments are compared and how their results would be. We have a Cochrane review going on in 2021. It is a living systematic review, but yet the results are to be out. So depending on what we have from the Cochrane review of 2020, this is the first point. One is full correction versus undercorrection. So as we can see, the cumulative data of undercorrection versus full correction, it favors full correction. Undercorrection shows a reduced weightage and a reduced importance. Full correction is favored in the result when we do the meta-analysis of full correction versus undercorrection. So the pooled data of the current available studies shows that full correction is more favored to prevent myopia progression. The second would be multifocal versus single lenses. So in this, the forest plot shows that there is almost the same amount of importance given for multifocals than the single vision lenses. But the problem was the data was slightly biased and there was a difference in data collected and the type of treatment that was given in different groups was different. But they have a fairly good amount of evidence to support that multifocals can be used, but it is not clinically significant to be applied. So multifocal lenses, even though they have a little bit advantage, it is not clinically significant to be applied. The third one would be rigid gas permeable versus single vision spectacles. These studies, it could not be analyzed in a group. The cumulative effect could not be assessed because single vision spectacles and rigid gas permeable lenses, all these studies had a different type of criteria. They had a lot of bias, lack of precision. So because of all these problems, it could not be grouped into a single data, but it usually favors, it has an equivocal response. Not much of difference is there. And mainly, we don't have much of difference between these two. So we don't have cumulative results to tell that this is very effective in patients. So this is the pooled data of orthokeratology versus single vision lenses. So orthokeratology, as I told, they used PMMA lenses, and overnight use of orthokeratology lenses were advised to flatten the cornea and to produce the myopic blur to reduce myopia progression. The problems of orthokeratology lens were infections and in compliance, reduced compliance because of poor fit. So these were the initial problems. Now they are coming with recent designs of lenses which have a better fit and a better material so that it can be more compliant with patients. So the recent studies with orthokeratology lenses show that there is a cumulative data which supports or favors orthokeratology lenses. And this is a positive feedback for us. We can use orthokeratology lenses, but still we need data regarding safety, and we need to have a acceptance in our population, because our population is not a population which favors contact lenses in children on a general basis. So here comes our most important thing, which is in vogue now, the antimuscarinic drugs versus placebo. So the antimuscarinic drugs, different drugs were evaluated, mainly atropine drops, pyranzepine, everything was evaluated, and antimuscarinic drops give a promising result which shows a cumulative importance of antimuscarinic drugs, which strongly favors the retardation of progression of myopia. So antimuscarinic drugs are a promising tool for us to go forward. And compliance, the initial studies had problems with compliance because of the percentages. So we are trying lower percentages, and we hope that it will be a promising situation for us. Another mechanism that has been studied but not very extensively studied is combination of treatments like optical with antimuscarinic drugs, but we don't have sufficient data to support that it can be used. So what do we infer from all these studies? How can we summarize these? The interventions that may not work as expected would be bifocals, progressive lenses, and soft contact lenses. And interventions that might work would be orthokeratology, low-dose atropine, and along with that, an increase in the daylight exposure and reducing near work. That might be the way to go forward. So we need still uniform data and things to actually support this but maybe this might be the correct way to go forward. So a little bit word on what I have found. This is the data which I have got from a small cohort of patients which I have followed up with atropine. Atropine 0.01%. I started using atropine even before it was commercially available. I was reconstituting it and giving. And the mean age of children was 9 years, and we had a follow-up of around, we used a 2-year gap. And the dropout rate was very high because of the COVID-19 pandemic. We did the study from around 2017 to 2018 to 20. So we had a dropout of around 42%. And if we see here, we had a 17.5% of patients who opted out. They did not want to even start the treatment. So in our population, we have other native treatments along with all these things, which we have to compete with. And we need correct patient guidance and patient information before we set out on this treatment. I had an initial population of around 57 children. The final analysis was done on 27. The mean change in the spherical equivalent was almost the same as the studies, which was approximately 0.32%. And 44.4% of children progressed despite usage of atropine. But on the brighter side, more than 50% of the children did not progress over this period by using atropine drops. So it is definitely progressing. My results are yet to be published. It's been accepted for publication, but we think that it might be a correct way to go on, but we need still other factors to stress the point that this is clearly useful, because there are other confounding factors which we had even in this study, because during the course of my study, we had the COVID-19 pandemic. We had children who had started using laptops and gadgets more than 2 hours per day. So all these confounding factors, and they had less of outdoor activities. They had more of indoor activities. So all these confounding factors need to be addressed to in a uniform manner over different geographic populations. So then only we will get clear idea. Now I come to the third and last clue. I have 4 legs, but I am not a table. I have a bark, but I am not a tree. Who am I? So I think by now you would have guessed which animal I am talking about and which disease I am talking about from these 3 clues. Any takers for this? Anyone from the audience?
Giraffe.
No. I have a bark. Yeah, it's a dog. Yes, that was by who said that? I can't see the name actually because I'm screening. Who said the answer?
I am not a tree. Oh, see, I am not a tree.
I am not a tree. Who said the correct answer? It's a dog. Who said the correct answer?
Amanda.
Okay. So you will be receiving a small sweet or toffee the gift. But actually, that is not the final question. The final question is, which breed of dogs have a high incidence of myopia? That is my final question. So towards the end of the last slide would be the answer. So before that, anyone who comes up with the answer will get another toffee.
Beagle.
No.
Pomeranian.
No. We'll come to it at the end. Okay, so what is next? How do we go about in the future? What are the other promising options that we see which can prevent myopia and retard myopia progression? As I told, we need uniform patterns of studies over geographic locations and ethnicities, because there are a lot of racial differences in all these factors which has to be addressed. And this is possible only with uniform protocols of evaluation and assessment and follow-up and treatment. So standard protocols need to be developed to compare these studies and get effective treatment options. So whatever I've discussed now is the studies which have been conducted till now and the analysis of the studies that have been conducted till now. So still a lot of studies are going on, especially in this year and last year because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we are yet to see the results of that. This one is supposed to be a little bit promising. We have initial data regarding this. This is the defocus incorporated multiple segments or DIMS spectacles. This has the same principle as what I told before, the optical correction. It has a central zone of around 9 millimeter diameter for distance refractive correction, and about around 3.5 diopters of myopic defocus, or plus 3.5 is given in the peripheral area to produce a peripheral myopic blur. So this is DIMS lenses. We have initial data regarding this DIMS lenses. The 2-year randomized control trial in Chinese population of the same myopic range shows a promising 52% slower than the single vision group of glasses. So we have to still evaluate regarding all these options, and we have to assess before we try it on our patients. The second one would be a highly aspherical lenslet target or HALT technology. This is also the same principle, but this lens uses a mechanism by which a shell of myopic defocus is produced in front of the eye, whereas the central area remains focused at the fovea. So this is the principle of the HALT technology, the same principle of myopic defocus in the periphery compared to the central area. And this could be the future of myopia progression retardation. And I think the Essilor has come forward with this sort of lens technology. So we have yet to assess regarding its results. So this is the FitSight fitness tracker. This incorporates the concept of increasing the outdoor activity. So we are all moving towards gadgets in our day-to-day life. We cannot even think of a day without our gadgets. So the LVP people and associates have devised this smartwatch as well as the smart app. So this app will track your activity, and this will give a feedback on the time which is spent outdoors, and this gives a feedback to the parents and the children, which will promote them to give more time outdoors. We have other spectacles as well which detect the amount of sunlight exposure, and they give varied, it's just a method to track how much of outdoor activity children have. So it is suggested that around 120 minutes of outdoor light is required to retard myopia progression. So that is what is being studied. That is what the studies tell us. Around 120 minutes of outdoor activity is advised. And indoor activity, as we all know, it should be reduced to as far as possible. And in children, we usually recommend around 1.5 hours of according to the age group, it can be slightly changed. 1.5 years is normally that 6 to 12 age groups, 1.5 to 2 hours of gadget use has been prescribed. There are varying guidelines, but roughly it will be around 1.5 to 2 hours. And we need to give them breaks. Every 20 minutes, they need to have a breaks of around 20 seconds, or at least see an object which is 20 feet apart, or they can take breaks. They should blink frequently. All these factors are there to reduce eye strain. I'm not going into that topic, but for myopia progression, these techniques have been recommended. The further research way in case of the outdoor light exposure is they are assessing the different wavelengths to which the child is exposed. So different wavelengths will they have not yet come with the exact details of how much it will affect the myopia progression, but they are definitely working on how much the wavelengths of light will affect the myopia progression in children. So that is the way to go forward. And in the end, to nature we return. So that should be the take-home message. Too much of everything is a problem, and the dose-response relationship of outdoor exposure has been studied. As I told you, around 120 minutes of outdoor exposure is advised for children regarding myopia progression, to retard myopia progression. So we need to advise more of outdoor activity as well as reduced indoor work, but we need to analyze it better to give clear-cut guidelines. So that would be in a nutshell. And one word regarding this blue filter lenses and wavelengths. Up to date, there have been no clear-cut studies to tell that any particular wavelength will retard or progress myopia progression. So we cannot be very adamant on advising the parents on blue filter lenses or anything. So that would be in a just myopia progression and interventions. So this is the answer to my question. It's a Labrador. This is my dog. I had a pretty difficult time making him wear the spectacles. I think he doesn't like spectacles. But from the start, I have felt that he is a little bit myopic. And according to literature, Labradors are approximately around more than 18 to 20% of Labradors are myopic. So that would be that. So whoever answered that questions will get toffees from Sun Pharma. So thank you. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you very much for the very interesting and enlightening talk on myopia. The treatment of myopia has progressed to a large extent from the time we had joined. At that, in those days, we just used to give classes and review every year or something like that. and fundus was seen only with direct ophthalmoscope. Indirect ophthalmoscope was very rarely used. Even retinal detachment surgeries we used to do using the direct. Nowadays, the people will laugh at us if you say, but it was actually done like that. And later came the contact lenses, LASIK, and everything. Slowly it progressed, and now there is prevention of progression of myopia, an interesting topic which is coming up. And I think Vijaya will be able to take it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lakshmi. It was indeed a really wonderful talk. Myopia is really a social burden. And Lakshmi, I've got 2 questions to you, if I may ask.
Yes, madam, of course.
In the studies, the age group 6 to 12 years are taken, but in our experience, I give atropine drops to all age groups less than 18 years. Can it be done? And that's one question. And second, can we give this 0.1% atropine to all ranges of myopia, like irrespective of high myopia or low myopia, whatever? That's the first question.
Okay. Actually, till now, whatever data we have collected, at present we are following that ATOM-2 study. So according to the protocol, they studied 6 to 12 years age group, and the myopia progression is more faster in that age group. So that is the rationale in giving them atropine drops in this age group. But I have given more than 12 years age group I have given, and I have not started below 5 years, but I have seen children coming from other institutes whom they have started on atropine 0.01% even at the age of 2 or 3. So age is not, there are no clear-cut guidelines, but just as of now, we go according to whatever data is available. Definitely, if they show progression beyond 12 years, I personally would start atropine drops to give them the benefit of doubt at least, because in my studies, whatever we learned from our patients, they don't have any acceptance problem. They don't have any near vision problem. They don't have photophobia with atropine drops because it's 0.01%. I just had one patient who had an over-the-counter purchase who got a 1% drop, and he came with a dilated pupil. Apart from that single incident, I have not had any issues with atropine drops, and people are tolerating it very well. But higher ranges of myopia, like more than 5 diopters, 6 diopters, and pathological myopia, they tend to respond less to atropine 0.01%. But we need to get data regarding that. And one more point is, atropine doesn't seem to work on children who have retinopathy of prematurity with myopia. So it doesn't the data doesn't show that it supports that. So that is what we have seen.
Thank you, Lakshmi. And the second question is the Ortho-K lens. Is it anybody practicing in Kerala? Because when I was in Vasan, there was this senior doctor who is very fond of Ortho-K lens, and she has tried in so many children, and she's very happy with it, with the Ortho-K lens.
Yes, ma'am.
Doing it in Kerala?
I am not aware of it, madam, actually, but I don't have any personal experience. In Arvind or wherever I have worked, I have not seen anyone practicing orthokeratology. But actually, orthokeratology was, I think, around 10 years back, orthokeratology was widely used. And then in between, it lost its charm. And again, now, since 2014 studies after that, they have shown that newer models of orthokeratology are better. But as far as I am concerned, I don't think our population 6 to 12 years, usually I don't advise them even normally contact lenses. So I don't think that I would personally advise, but I don't know if anybody in the audience who is aware of it maybe can enlighten us.
Hello, Lakshmi. Can you hear me?
Yes, madam. Yes, madam. Yes, madam.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Hima. I'm colleague to your mother.
Yes, I know, madam.
You know me. I'm your teacher
madam.
also.
Yes, madam. I know.
Not that I taught you. Okay, Lakshmi, I congratulate you for your talk. You have done well, and you have highlighted all the points. The thing I want to tell you is that I had a very good experience when I went to Gulf. regarding myopia. It was very rampant there, and all what you told was true there. Indoor activities, mobile gaming, digital type, etc. was very high, and children were having very high amount of myopia. And I used to advise them whatever you told as treatment, like outdoor activities, decrease screen time, etc. Except for the atropine part, which was not that much
Popular at that time.
into vogue. Yeah, popular at that time. I used to give all the advices you were giving, and I used to see a lot of improvement in my patients, which was a little vast, 20 years in girls. Okay, so in that time I have seen spurious myopia also. That is, children reading books at a stretch, one full book they will read, novels, or used to play games for long hours, like 3-4 hours continuous. Their parents would come and tell me that the children can't see. And when I check, I used to see that they have spurious myopia, -6 and 7. When I dilate and refract, it comes to 0 level. So I had to teach the parents all these things regarding the near work. And some parents are very good listeners, and they used to take their children outside for activities. And usually myopia is controllable. Once the outdoor activity increases, I found that myopia is more controllable. So that is my part of my experience shared. And regarding the dog, I think Pug is also myopic.
Maybe.
Because it has got very big eyes. It is prone to get glaucoma very fast. And I think pugs are also myopic. I don't know.
Whatever data I got from Google only I shared. I have no personal.
I don't know. My friend has a pug, and she's complaining that that pug developed myopia, and the pug can't see for far, and is developing this glaucoma fast, and is on treatment. So I don't know, but I'm sharing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. No, I have not done retinoscopy. I have not got him patient enough to sit for retinoscopy. Even wearing that glasses were a bit difficult. So whatever Rama madam told was correct actually. Maybe in Kerala we have not got into that indoor activity system and flat system that much. Maybe that might be a cause for reduced myopia incidence. I think we don't have any unified studies in Kerala telling our incidence. Maybe we need a multicentric assessment of how much of incidence of myopia we have in our pediatric population. So that will give us a better idea on whether the epidemic has affected us much. But personally, I feel that more than myopia, as Rama madam told, there are a lot of children who come with pseudomyopia, and on autorefraction, they have a very high refractive error, -5 and 6 and all they show. But on cycloplegic refraction, they show maybe sometimes +1 or +0.25 or something like that. So that is very common nowadays. And even in children wearing glasses, they come for regular review. When we take the autorefraction, we get a higher minus. That is very common now. So cycloplegic refraction is a must.
Yeah, I also second that. I don't go after this AR. I take it as a guideline only. I refract every children and find it out for myself, and I will do PMT also to give glasses.
Yes.
It's a must for children.
Yes.
Okay, then. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam.
With the permission of the chair, can I say something? We'll continue this discussion. We have one interesting case. What you were talking about children in Kerala, one category of children is people who come from US and settle down here and then go back. Every 6 months, they're on this program. So there is one interesting case of a child which we are going to just present by Dr. Lakshmi. After that, we'll continue this discussion.
Yes.
Okay, madam? I hope.
Agreed.
Okay, Dr. Lakshmi.
Good evening, all. Thank you for giving me this opportunity and respected dignitaries on the virtual platform. I'm here to present a case of an 11-year-old female child who attended our OPD in October 2016. She had complaints of difficulty to read blackboard with present spectacles and underwent ophthalmic evaluation in Medical College, Thrissur. She was evaluated in 2013 with complaints of defective vision in USA. Later, a follow-up was done in 2015 and she was prescribed on bifocals from USA due to progression. She had no history of any developmental delay, medical elements were not there, and there was no history of any family history of myopia. And in the findings obtained from the examination done in USA, she was found to have left eye esophoria and the near point of accommodation was 2 centimeters and Titmus blight test was normal. The fundus showed a large disc and cup, the right eye measuring of 0.45 and the left eye 0.6. She was then prescribed with bifocals with +2 added lens in 2015. And you can see the prescription here given from the USA. In ocular examination conducted in Medical College, Thrissur, she was found to have a head posture of normal and left eye esotropia with prism bar cover test measuring 10% diopters in near and extraocular movements were full. In vision, distant vision was 6/60 in both eyes, which improved to 6/12 with pinhole, and the near vision was N6 in both eyes. The binocular single vision tests were normal for her. And the anterior segment examination was normal. The pupils were briskly reacting and the lens was clear. In the fundus, we found that the media was clear and she had a tilted disc in the right eye. The cup disc ratio was 0.4 and the vessels were appearing normal. She had a positive foveal reflex. We also conducted a homatropin retinoscopic cycloplegic refraction and the right eye showed a compound myopia and the left eye showed simple myopia. A post-mydriatic test was also done after the cycloplegic refraction and she was prescribed on single vision lenses from 2016. Later, she lost a follow-up at our OPD and in 2018, she had sent a prescription of spectacle correction. This is a tabulated form of the myopia correction she had. In 2013, when she was 8-year-old, she had a small degree of myopia and follow-up was advised then. In 2015, she showed a progression on cycloplegic refraction and was prescribed on bifocals with +2D dioptric sphere. In 2016, you can see a progression in myopia even with the use of bifocals, and in our OPD, we prescribed her with single vision glasses because she was complaining difficulty in using her bifocals. And in 2018, from the prescription she had sent us through social media, we found that there was an arrest in progression with the use of single vision glasses. Now coming to the discussion. There are well-known myopia progression theories, out of which the mechanical tension theory, the peripheral refraction theory, and the lag of accommodation theory is the highlighted theory among the following. And one of the options of myopia control is the optimal spectacle correction. And we have 3 options for this: the single vision glasses, the bifocal lens, and the progressive lenses. Out of these 3 options, the bifocals and the progressive added lens have been much more investigated for myopia control, and they have thought to reduce the accommodative effort and thereby halt the progression of myopia. There are well-prescribed indications for giving bifocals and progressive added lenses from various studies, and these have been shown here. Let me brief to you some of the studies which have been conducted comparing the bifocals as well as the progressive added lens. The The Houston myopia control theory is the first randomized clinical trial which was designed to test the efficacy of bifocal lenses for the control of juvenile myopia. Among the children completing the 30 months of follow-up, myopia progression seemed to slow down with the use of bifocals in children with near-point esophoria. And next, coming to the bifocal control of myopia, based on this study, the ultimate prescription for the child fitting bifocals during the young age, which was 8 years, is less than minus 1.5 spherical correction. The exceptionally low rate of change of minus 0.4 diopters per year found among the bifocal subjects in the study is uncommon and suggests that the bifocals are having a controlling and reducing effort upon the rate of progression of myopia. Next, coming to the COMET study, this study was conducted to evaluate whether the progressive added lenses slowed the rate of juvenile onset myopia when compared to the single vision lenses. The children were followed up for 3 years in this study, and the results were showing that there was some benefit during the first year. In COMET-2 study, the progressive added lens versus single vision lens in myopic children with high accommodative lag and near esophoria was studied. And the COMET results suggest that the progressive added lens may be useful in certain subjects of myopic children. In particular, the COMET had demonstrated that the progressive added lens have their greatest treatment effect in myopic children with poor accommodative response. That is, in children with those having the lag of accommodation and esophoria at near. And contrary to the results obtained from the study, we found that the child was showing less progression with the use of single vision lenses when compared to the bifocals which she had used earlier. Thank you.
Any comments?
Yes, one comment. Maybe the one point that I missed maybe is that when we give a glass prescription, especially in myopia, we have to have an idea of the orthoptic assessment as well. We need to check on whether the child is having an esophoria or an exophoria. And if the child has an esophoria, I would not recommend that we would overcorrect the myopia. Because if you overcorrect, I've seen even adults who have been overcorrected with myopia and they develop double vision for distance. So I have had patients of age 23 and 21 who have had overcorrection of myopia. The actual amount of myopia was around 0.75 and they were using 2 diopters of myopia. Most probably because the autorefraction would have shown higher rates, and adults, we don't do a cycloplegic refraction as a routine in most places. So I had to do a correction, and even in 14-year-old children, I've seen that I have had to do atropine refraction to rule out the accommodative part. So if they are having an esophoria, I would not recommend to overcorrect the myopia. The same principle, an optimal correction would be the best way to go forward. But since this child had an esophoria, I don't think we need to give bifocals. But if there is a esotropia along with the accommodative lag, then that could be a reason that she was prescribed a bifocal. So if we check the accommodative lag and the accommodative facility, maybe we can give a little bit more of insight to how to manage this child.
What about surgery?
Right now, she had a problem with the jump, the bifocal jump.
Yeah. No, it's difficult. I personally do not prescribe progressives or bifocals for even myopia progression, because even in children with accommodative esotropia, it's very difficult to maintain that glasses. So when it's at most needed. So I generally, personally, I don't prefer this for retarding myopia progression. So an optimal correction. So if you have features of esotropia, maybe you can undercorrect a little bit, but not much.
Even with myopia, we had some children in a very minimal, but we had some children there. And actually 1 or 2 did complain of photophobia in sunlight. So I don't know. After I think 1 or 2 years, no, Sujata?
Yes, after 1 year more, due to this near work, computer classes and all these things.
But maybe we have to assess that pupillometer evaluation as well. The topography machines now have a pupil diameter assessment in dim light and bright light. Maybe we have to follow up with that along with whatever refractive. I just followed up with the spherical equivalent. I wanted to assess more of the patient acceptability of 0.01%. So in my study, I didn't find much of difficulties. They didn't complain of anything. But yes,
I had an interesting, actually, the mother said, because this girl was a little not very forthcoming about it, but the mother said that this girl prefers to stay in the dark when she's using these drops. So she goes back from the sunlight and stays behind doors.
Okay.
So that is when I asked her, when is she having any problem? And
but pupil was normal size. It was not dilated.
Pupil was normal. And she also complained due to this. Recently, due to this more use of computer and mobile, she's having problem.
Maybe in those children, we can use a reduced percentage of atropine. It's not commercially available here, but it can be reconstituted and given. I used to give 0.01% before, that is 2 years before that, before commercially available atropine was available. I used to give reconstituted one. So maybe in such children, we can give a reduced percentage. And even they say that when we have a progression with the use of atropine 0.01%, we can increase the percentage or increase the dosage, but we don't have clear-cut guidelines.
0.01 in the
that point.
Not.
Yeah, the reduced percentage. But I don't think that even if they have a problem with 0.01, even reduced than that also they have problem. So maybe we have to opt out from atropine.
One more thing I would like to ask. ഇപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഇങ്ങനത്തെ കുട്ടികൾ ഇപ്പോൾ കൂടുതൽ കമ്പ്യൂട്ടർ യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്നവർക്ക് ഒരു ലാർജ് സ്ക്രീനിലേക്ക് പ്രൊജക്ട് ചെയ്തിട്ട് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു ടിവിയിൽ ഈ ലെസൺസ് കാണുന്നത് will be more.
Yes, it will be definitely more helpful. I usually advise my patients to use that, to use a screen mirroring with the smartphone rather than using the smartphone.
Yes.
Plus, I advise them to use mobiles or tabs only for their online classes. And after that, whatever entertainment they have, they can have it on TV maybe for 1 hour, and avoid use of laptops or mobiles or gadgets like that, which use near work, because that strains more of our accommodation. So maybe that is also another factor that strains them, accommodative strain, and along with that the light. So that is advisable.
Lakshmi, it's a nice talk. What's the frequencies? 0.01. How many daily? How many times or weekly? What's the frequency?
Once daily at bedtime. Once daily at bedtime.
How long is it? Maximum 12 age. What is the age maximum you try?
No, I have used till 15 years. 15 years I have used. But only if they show documented progression of more than 0.5 diopters in the last year or last 6 months. If they show a progressive increase, then I start. I usually start only with a single daily dosage. If they don't respond to that, generally I stop the drug. Maybe I'll continue it for 2 years and then stop, but I have not started the higher percentages of atropine. I have not used that.
Can I ask a question? How many years you have to continue the atropine drops?
Usually minimum 2 years should be given. And if the child is still progressing on atropine drops, maybe we can increase. Like if after stopping, if they again increase their myopia, then maybe we can restart it, and maybe we can use it up to 18 years is also, some people use till 18 years. But all those do not have any clear-cut guidelines. Only thing is our clinical practice. That's all.
Can you a little more highlight the bifocal and progressive? So bifocal means you are adding +2 in lower segment.
Yes, +2 because it produces a peripheral retinal. Yeah, at least in the superior retina, it produces a myopic blur. So that is the point. And second point is, one is lag of accommodation. It reduces the lag of accommodation. So these two things are supposed to be working with these bifocals and progressive accommodation lenses. But whatever studies we have, the studies which have done, they have taken a cumulative data, and in the Cochrane review, they have done a meta-analysis. On that basis, what they tell is it is not as effective as these drugs in case of this thing. So if there is an accommodative lag, if we feel that this monocular estimation method, when we feel a high accommodation lag, or if the child has an esotropia, then maybe we can opt for a bifocal or a progressive.
For bifocal, it is routinely adding +2 for all, any age-wise, any difference or anything?
Usually they tell like there is a range. In many studies they have done different things, but I personally do not use. Maybe 1.5 to 2 would be sufficient. 3.5 is the peripheral retinal blur which has been advised in these latest lenses, but I don't think that much of that is what is told to be effective. 3.5 diopters of retinal blur, but I don't think in progressive lenses we would give that much of a correction in addition. So maybe less than that, but I don't have any personal experience.
+2D is actually the COMET study protocol.
Yes.
That is what they were probably doing in the US at that time. That was the time when the COMET study was going on.
Other studies have used +1.5 and like that, but maybe it might not be producing that much of effective blur as much as what these new lenses are telling. We need still data to comment on it.
Regarding the myopia incidence in Kerala, because there's a race differences there. I have done PG from Gujarat. Maximum myopia in India is in Gujarat, Rajasthan area. Because the Aryans and the Dravida, I think there's a difference. South India myopia is very less.
Yes, maybe, but that's why I told like ethnicity studies are important, and we need a multi-centric study to assess the incidence of myopia in Kerala.
So the Dravida it is very less, and Aryans it is very high. That's why North India it is very high. Gujarat, the big business is LASIK surgery. Actually, 50% people are myopia. So we are minting money with the LASIK.
It will increase in Kerala also with our IIT coachings.
Online class and everything with the flat and because of the compound wall and gate and everything. Now students are sitting inside. Usually our time we are wandering playground, neighbors house, neighbors mango and everything. Everywhere there's a compound wall, there's a gate. Usually there's nothing in the village area. You can go anywhere. Always we are outside.
No, but personally, one thing I would like to tell is during this period of pandemic, I've not actually seen a very rampant myopia increase. But at the same time, I've seen children decompensating. Children with phorias are decompensating, especially children who are stable with like mixed astigmatism, they have a spherical plus spherical error with a minus in esotropia during this period. I've seen many children, usually above 1.5 only I add the plus add, but many children, when I see less of hypermetropia even, they decompensate. During this period, I've seen many of these children decompensating who have astigmatism associated with a spherical error. I don't know about the general practice of everybody who are doing. I've had the necessity to increase the plus add in many children. So that is something which I have commonly seen. All these phorias are decompensating.
Maybe after some time, due to the COVID restrictions and all, more indoor activities and online classes, at least likely to increase, I think. Maybe
and it has to be signed and approved that SLC result has gone to 99.9 without going, children not going to school. So online class is successful than going to school. So that's evidence now. So now the parents are teaching and teachers are taking salary. So that's a difference.
We can wait and see the results. I think if there are
Yes.
Any questions?
Jyoti, anything to say?
There are any more questions? I think we can continue.
Samyukta, do you have any opinions on this?
Yeah, actually, like many children.
Yeah.
Jyoti was
Can I speak, madam?
Yeah, sure. Speak.
Madam, I have had experience with a few kids that was towards the end of my training in Tirunelveli Aravind. We had had a cohort of people getting started on atropine treatment, 0.01%. Till the end of my training, whatever results we had got there were quite encouraging for us. And back home in RIO also, we had a few patients who were put on these drops. But unfortunately, last year the follow-up data could not be collected.
Yes.
Still, many of them are on phone connect. They are calling up and asking, and I'm still able to get a few details on this. So it looks promising. Maybe we can put it a regular practice in Thrissur also to have
Yes,
put a database on these things.
Yes, I think we
Looking
need
forward to it.
unified studies. Unified statewide studies are needed for all these things. I think Babu sir can initiate it.
Okay.
President's new project. One more project for president.
Yeah.
I think we have one question in the chat box. That is, how often are patients called? Usually we call them at 1 month and then 4 monthly thereafter. And each visit, it's supposed to be better to take the axial length with an IOL master. If it's not available, the spherical equivalent can be assessed. So maybe 4 monthly follow-ups for 2 years is essential before we brand them as non-responders.
Okay. Sujata.
Okay. Good evening, respected seniors and dear friends. On behalf of all TACO members and on my personal behalf, I thank Dr. Lakshmi for your excellent presentation. It covered all the topics and it is indeed refreshingly different. We all gained a lot from this. Now I would like to thank Dr. Radha Madam, one of my mentors, who had joined this meeting. It's always a pleasure to interact with you, Madam. Thank you. Then I would like to thank Dr. Vijay Kumari, Senior Consultant, Drishyam Eye Hospital, Thrissur, for agreeing to chair this session and lead the discussions. Now, I would like to thank all the senior faculty, Andrew sir, Babu sir, and all of you who have joined this session and made this a memorable academic event. Now, I would also like to thank the Sun Pharma Milmet, Sun Pharma Division Milmet of Milmet and Mr. Sargent. For sponsoring this this academic meet. I believe it is as a part of the their release of this Kitro eye drops, that is again this atropine 0.01% eye drops. Now we all of us are very much convinced by Lakshmi's talk that this is very much useful and we will all be prescribing this drug. Then now I would like to thank each and everyone once again. Thank you all. Good night.
Lakshmi, ഏറ്റവും വലിയ അവാർഡ് അച്ഛനും അമ്മയും ഇതുകൊണ്ട് കാണുന്നു ലക്ഷ്മി. We have to thank to COVID and Zoom for that.
Yes. And thank you to all my teachers. I still remember Sudha Madam's class on diabetic retinopathy, Sujata Madam's class on NLD obstruction. All these classes I still remember. Vijay Madam's class on glaucoma. So I remember all of you and all my teachers. I thank you very much for having me here. It was an honor and a pleasure, really, and having my parents along with it.
അതാണ് ഏറ്റവും വലിയ അവാർഡ്. മോള് ക്ലാസ് എടുക്കുന്ന അച്ഛനമ്മയെ അപ്രീഷിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നു. great teachers. Our great teachers are now മോളുടെ ക്ലാസ് അറ്റൻഡ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. That's the best thing. So അത് കോവിഡ് ഈ സൂം വന്നതുകൊണ്ട് മാത്രമാണ്. Otherwise nobody will come attend your class.
Thank you so much, Lakshmi. It was a real wonderful talk.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
സന്തോഷം.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Okay then. Bye. Good night.
Good night.
Night.
മോദി സാർ ഒന്ന് പറ, എന്തെങ്കിലും പറ. സാറിന് ഡയബറ്റീസ് ക്ലബും ഇല്ല, ഒന്നുമില്ല. സാറിനെ കണ്ടിട്ട് 1 വർഷമായി.
അതെ, പറയാനായിട്ടൊന്നുമില്ല. ആകെ ഒരു മയോപ്പിയ ടോക്കല്ലേ. ആകെ എനിക്ക് ഓർമ്മയുള്ളത് പ്രഭാകരൻ സാറിന്റെ ഒരു ചോദ്യമാണ്. Young lady asking, I have got severe myopia. What should I do? Will my child have? You know, our classmates are very smart. They told you marry a hypermetropic.
Noteless.
Actually, genetic counseling has been advised high myop for high myops.
രണ്ട് മയോപ്പിയ തമ്മിൽ ഒന്നിച്ചു വരാതിരിക്കുക അല്ലേ?
You marry a hypermetropic, so it will cancel out. You know, that's what we all thought at that time.
Fine. That's it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing.
Okay.
Okay, Lakshmi. Sir,
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Madam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Babu, sir.
President ഇറങ്ങി കൊച്ചിക്ക് പോയാ?
ലക്ഷ്മി,
Yes, sir.
എന്താ എന്റെ പേര് പറഞ്ഞില്ല എന്റെ ഇടയ്ക്ക്? എന്താ ഞാൻ ചെയ്യുന്നത്?
ഇല്ല, ഒന്നുമില്ല സർ. യൂണിഫോം ആയിട്ട് we can conduct trials, maybe multicentric trials or multicentric studies on incidence of myopia due to the present situation. Yes.
ഞാൻ മഹേഷായിട്ടൊന്ന് ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്യട്ടെ.
കോവിഡ് സിറ്റുവേഷൻ, ഓൺലൈൻ ക്ലാസ്. ഇതുപോലെ ഗോപാലിനെ പോലെ 3 ദിവസമൊക്കെ ഓൺലൈൻ ക്ലാസ് വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ മയോപ്പിയ കൂടും. അതുകൊണ്ട് അതൊക്കെ കുറച്ച് നിർത്താൻ പറ. പിന്നെ ബദലായിട്ടും പാലിലായിട്ടും വെക്കരുതെന്ന് പറയുക. ഓക്കെ, കൊച്ചിക്ക് പോയായിരുന്നോ ബാബു? കൊച്ചിക്ക് പോയായിരുന്നോ?
പോയി. ഇനോഗ്രേഷൻ ഒക്കെ നടത്തിട്ട് പോകുന്നല്ലേ?
Rajan, you can stop the recording.
റെക്കോർഡ് നിർത്തിക്കോ. ഇല്ലെങ്കിൽ അവിടെ നിന്ന് ഇപ്പം വരും, പാല വരും.